Hello. Next we will go through all functions on Junkkari G-Wizard control unit. First we can see here the main page, and all needed information is shown on the same page while you are seeding. First we can see here the speed of the machine, and then there is a half lift icon, then there is an area meter, then there are these row markers. In this box we can adjust amount of fertilizer, and here we can adjust these tram lines. And with these buttons you can adjust all the functions you can see on the main page. We can go through all these one by one. First, when we put some speed to the machine, we can see how fast we are driving. And here we have a half lift button. We can activate half lift here, and this icon turns to black. And when it's not activated, it shows on gray. Here we can see the area meter. Actually there is two different area meters, HA1, which is shown now, and we can change it to HA2. And here we have these row markers. You can use them by manual or auto mode. On manual mode you can change the side by pressing this big button here, either to left hand side or right hand side. For example, now the right hand side arm is activated, and now the left hand side is activated. If you use it on auto mode like that, now we can see that it is on auto mode. We can change again by this big button here which side is starting to mark when we are driving on the field. Next we can see the amount of fertilizer per hectare, and we can also adjust that on this G-Wizard control unit by these arrows here, up, down or up arrow. By pressing it once you can see that we add 10%, meaning 35 kilograms per hectare, and we can add it as much as we want until we reach 100%. Or we can go down even to 0. Or actually minus 90%. And we go back to basic level. How much we add or decrease the amount by one press, we can adjust on the setup page, which we will go through later. You can change it from 1% to 99%. It is quite handy to use. Then we have these tram lines, meaning that we are making tracks to the sprayer after seeding. And with this +1 button we can change this upper number like that, 4, 5. Every time we have two same numbers we hear double beeping, and we can see that now the tram lines are activated. Next we can go through what are these buttons here. This first button here on the left hand side, there is two functions on it. As I told you, there is a half lift activation, and if you press that more than 3 seconds we will take power off, and we put the power back again by pressing it once. Next button here is this auto or manual mode to the row markers. This big button here has many functions. As told before, we can change the side of the row marker which is starting, or we can adjust amount of the fertilizer. Next button is stop button, and then we are not counting the lifts of the machine, meaning that if we have, for example, here in the tramline counter 3 and 5, and if we are lifting machine as many times as we want, this number 3 is not changing because there is cross here and there is a stop button activated. We take this lift sensor back to use by pressing again this button here, and now we can see that there is no cross anymore and all lifts are counted. Again, here on the right hand side button we have two functions. By pressing rapidly once, we can change this bout number. And remember that always when we have two same numbers here, we are making tram lines. If we press it more than 3 seconds, we go to page number 2. And here we can see the RPMs on the seed side axle, RPMs on the fertilizer side axle. And we also can adjust amount of the fertilizer. And here is one important function also. We can calibrate our gearbox alarm here, which you have to do every time you adjust seed side gearbox more than 30%. If we put some speed to the machine, we see that this cal button activates. And this activation or calibration must be done when you are normally seeding. When we press this cal button, we can see ratio here between our crown wheel and seed side axle. We simply press OK button and it automatically goes back to page number 2. Again, pressing shortly this right hand side button, we go to page number 3. Here we can see HA1 area meter, and with these pillows we can change it to total area, and you can also see how many hours you have drilled. Again, pressing this below, we can change it to HA2, and here we can reset these area meters by pressing reset button, and we confirm it by pressing yes. Now you can see that HA2 is 0, but we still have on HA1 some hectares drilled. Again, pressing shortly right hand side button, we go to page number 4. We take speed off, and we see that now we can do product calibration. We can go line by line these functions here. First, we can go through how do we make product calibration. When we are on the first line, we just press OK button, and we can adjust the target, how many kilograms we want per hectare, by pressing this set button. We can change it to, for example, 350 kilograms. Press OK. Again, OK. And then we see the weight, how many kilograms we get from the calibration trace. Before we change this number, we of course has to make the actual calibration test. We put calibration trace under feeding houses, make calibration test and wait the result. And here we put the result. In this case, it can be, for example, 3.2 kilograms. Press OK, and again OK. And we hear that the actuator is moving a bit. It is correcting the result. and sometimes you have to make it twice, never more than 3 times to get right result. Okay, on next line, line number 2, there is user setup. We go through these functions. First, we can adjust display, brightness and contrast. Next line, line number 2 is customize. There we can adjust how many percentage we adjust fertilize rate by 1 press. We can change it, for example, to 20%. We can change it, for example, to 20%. By pressing ESC, we go back to user setup. Line number 3 is time and date. You can change it if you want. Line number 4 is helpline. There is our address, our telephone number and our website. Line number 5, it's language. There are 17 different languages. We can change it, for example, to Swedish. Now we have a Swedish language here, but we go back to English. And now we are back in English. Next line, line number 6 is drill setup. And there is a width of the machine. In this case we have 3 meter seed drill. This means how many meters we are moving between 2 speed pulses. And all Junkkari green machines has this 1.15 meters. This SSF auto calibration means that we can make this pulse value by driving on the field 100 meters, and it goes following. We measure the field 100 meter. Before we start, we press OK button. We start to drive. You can see that the tractor is moving, and it says here that stop on 100 meter mark. So we stop here like that and press OK button. And if we want to accept that, we press OK again. And now we can see that the new number is 1.22 meters between 2 speed pulses. Okay, this T factor here, it is only information, you cannot change it anyhow. Then number 7, on line number 7 we have tram lines. When we pack our machine, it will be always 0, because we don't know which kind of a sprayer, how wide sprayer farmer has, so he has to activate it by himself. It is quite easy to do by this big button here, up or down. If we have now 3 meter seed drill and the farmer has 15 meter sprayer, it is just, you can see it quite easy here. 3 meter seed drill and 15 meter sprayer, or can be 21 meters sprayer, for example. The side arrows here, we can change asymmetrical tram lines or activate asymmetrical tram lines either to left hand side or the right hand side. But they are quite rare, so normally we use these symmetrical ones. We go back to 15 meter sprayer. Then we have on line number 8, we have all alarms. You can take them off or put back on. First line here, we have a seed tank sensor, meaning that if there is not much material left, you get alarm. Next line is the fertilize tank, and third line is speed sensor on seed axle. Then we have speed sensor for fertilize axle. Then we have a speed sensor for whole machine. This is quite important because this is checking that if machine is on working position but we don't get any speed pulses, you will get alarm. Meaning that for example ground wheel is not down on the ground, or the chain of the ground wheel can be broken. Next we have a gearbox alarm, meaning that we are measuring speed from the land wheel and comparing it to the speed of the seat axle. So if there will be rapid change, we will get alarm, gearbox alarm, that there can be something wrong inside the gearbox. And we have another alarm here. If we go down, there is a battery alarm, tractor battery alarm, and the limit is 9.6 volt. If voltage is going below that, we will get alarm. And now we go back to page number 4. There is a factory setup, and they are behind pin code, and all these setups we are making in factory, so farmer doesn't need to do anything behind the pin code. And line number 4 is diagnostics, and here we can see how many voltage we get from the tractor, and we can test, for example, lift sensor, if that is okay. And metering unit means that we get all speed from the speed sensor, seat axle and fertilize axle. And also Linux actuator stage we see here. For example, here we ask 41 millimeter and we get feedback which is 40.96 millimeter. Then we have line number 3, which is history. You can see all hectares which has been drilled with this seed drill, and also all hours which has been seeded. This is not counting hours on the road, only when the machine is down on the working position. And the last line here is line number 4, function test. This is only used in our assembly line. With this one we test all sensors and functions. Next we can go back to main page by pressing this right hand side button. And I can show you now the most common alarms we get sometimes during seeding. For example, if we put machine down but there is no speed, after 20 seconds we get this kind of alarm. The speed value is blinking and we get this double beep after every 5 seconds. Then we start to drill again and there is not anymore that alarm. Okay, tank sensor alarms, they are quite common when a tank starts to be empty. This is seed side. This icon here is like a plant. And then on the fertilizer side, this is like a granulate. Now the fertilizer tank is starting to get empty. Okay, there was basic functions on the Junkkari G-Wizard control unit.